Now, if you're watching this, chances are you've got a bezel insert that needs removing, and you may have also gotten your hands on one of these, which is Joule Time's latest tool to make that a possibility with a minimum of headaches. Now, let's take a look at what's involved with this. You've got 2 pieces of the central core of the tool, and then you have an insert to install the ceramics and an insert to remove them. Now, if you have a watchmaking background, you may understand that the tool that you're using this to replace is a bezel press, which is very heavy and very strong. So it might seem strange that we would be able to do it with something as seemingly lightweight as this, but after many, many prototypes and a lot of practice, we have narrowed it down to something that is, so far, has been 100% effective at removing these without damaging them. So let's take a look at what's involved. Now, on the bezel insert, you can see that there's a little step on the back side of the ceramic, and that's what you want to interface with. The little plastic ring that holds it to the case, you want to make sure is not in there because that can get in the way. And also, by way of disclaimer, this is only for pressure fit bezels. So if they're glued on type or whatever, it might remove it, but it's not designed to. So let's go ahead and look at how this works. You put the remover insert in the center of the bezel so that it rests on the inside edge of that ceramic lip. And you want to make sure there's very little play. So if that's the case, then you're ready to go ahead and put it in the case. So you got that in the tool, and you can see that it's flush. You want to make sure that it stays, it doesn't tilt, it doesn't come off of it at all. And then you just want to put the top on and turn it just until it's snug down onto the bezel. And the last thing you want to make sure of before you do anything is that if you look inside, on the outside edge, you should see the metal of the bezel all the way around. Now, if you're overlapping the ceramic of the insert, there's a good chance it'll break. So that's where you want to make sure everything is centered and everything is straight. And now comes the fun and also nerve-wracking part. So the way that this works is, even though it's threaded, it's not designed specifically to turn and push the bezel out. You're applying force to the inside. The thread is designed to make sure that it stays level and that it gives you some element of control. If you had something like this that had no thread, theoretically you could just push it together and it would pop the insert out. But we want to make sure that it stays perfectly straight, and that's why the threads are there. So the way that I do it is I put it in my palm, whatever way is comfortable, and then put the other palm over it. And I'll try and do this in a way that you can see it. And just apply pressure like you're squeezing it and also twisting it to tighten at the same time. And then there should be a sharp snap, and that means your bezel's out. There we go. So it takes a little bit of force, but not a whole lot. And if you find yourself really, really having to push, there might be some kind of misalignment, so you can just back it out and try again. And now with these ones, with the 40 and the 41s, the way that it's shaped, you can actually just drop the insert right out. So that is one insert removed. Okay, so you got the bezel removed. Now you need to install your new one. So how does that work? Well, in this case, what you would do, now normally this bezel would be marked before we remove the other one, but you want to just make sure you line it up as close as you can to the 12 and just kind of set it in place. And then this is going to be the insert to install the new one. Now, as you can see, there's a little window here, so you can put the curved side down and line it up so that it lines up with the 12 o'clock. You see? So that is kind of the most finesse part of this whole process. And then what you want to do is, you'll see there's a little notch on the installer and a little notch here, and you want to line those up. This one lines up with this little bump on the outside, so that kind of gives you a way to pilot it. There we go. So once it goes down over that notch, just keep holding pressure and flip it over. And what you can do is check and make sure if the bezel moves around a little bit, if this little arrow has changed, that's okay as long as it still lines up with the marks that you have on your bezel. So let's say that that was the case. And then also take a look and make sure that these numbers are roughly lined up with the little channels on the installer. We've tried to make it as visible as possible while still having the strength that you need to get the job done. So once that's in and fairly well lined up, then you can go ahead and put the top on, and I like to put this down for this part just to make sure it doesn't shake around and come out of alignment. And then you just kind of screw that down until that's snug. And then one last check to make sure everything looks good. And then same process as removing it. What you're doing is putting it in the palm of your hand. You want to apply the pressure together and use those threads as a guide. So there we go. I do believe I heard it pop in pretty much right away, but just gave it some extra pressure to be sure. There we go. And let's check it out. There we go. And so that insert is installed. You want to make sure that everything is flush on the edges. If you need to go again, you can actually just put it right in. You don't have to remove the bezel. You can just put it right back in and put more pressure, and that should help get everything lined up. But this one actually went perfectly first time. So that is the process.